This is the Untold Italy Travel Podcast, and you're listening to episode number 246.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. Each week, your host, Katy Clarke, takes you on a journey in search of magical landscapes, history, culture, wine, gelato, and, of course, a whole lot of pasta. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Ciao a tutti. Welcome to another Italian wine episode with our good friends Olivia and Andrea from Italian Wine Tales. Today, we're heading over to the island of Sicily, where winemaking has been a tradition for millennia. In fact, well before the Greeks and ancient Romans arrived. Winemaking here is part of the fabric of life, and especially so on the slopes of Mount Etna, Sicily's smouldering volcano. This fertile volcanic soil is the perfect place to grow and cultivate vines that go on to produce the most flavourful grapes for the local wine. Just like in many areas of southern Italy, younger generations are taking hold of local traditions and adding their own spin to the winemaking process. And so apart from the volcano, it's definitely a fun time to try Sicilian wine. So let's find out more. Bentonati, welcome back to the Untold Italy podcast, Olivia and Andrea.
Hey, Katy.
Ciao, Katy.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Always great to have you on the show. And we love chatting about Italian wine, don't we?
Oh.
And I'm super excited about this episode because it's not often that you get to talk about wine made from grapes grown on the slopes of an active and smouldering volcano.
Indeed, seriously, one of my absolute favourite wine regions. I can't wait to talk about Mount Etna.
Oh, exciting. But, I think everyone needs to know exactly who you are before we get chatting about these wines. So give us a quick introduction and remind everyone who are our guests that talk about Italian wine.
So I'm Olivia and my husband is Andrea, and together we run Italian Wine Tales, which is an online resource all about the wonderful world of Italian wine, where you can find info on wine tours, wine varieties, and just general suggestions of what to drink while you're in Italy. So who doesn't love that?
I'm happy with that. Excellent. So today we're heading over to Sicily, and Sicily is like a really exciting wine region. There's a lot of things going on there. We've already talked about Marsala wine and the wines from the west coast of the region and the island, but today we're going to the most exciting part, to the mother, as they call her, Mount Etna, and let's have a chat and find out about what this region is like and why it's such a popular and up-and-coming wine region.
So, as you said, we're talking about Mount Etna, and it's the eastern coast of Sicily. So, even if you don't have the geographical map in front of you right now, you know this place. Why? Because it's the part of Italy that was featured in the second season of Wild Lotus. Mm-hmm. So, we're talking about that area there. As you said, there is the mother of Mount Etna, which is an active smoldering volcano, which gives incredible fertile land, incredible fertile soil for all kind of agriculture, but especially when it comes for wines and winemaking.
The thing that I love as well, but when you land in Catania, you immediately see Mount Etna, and you travel up and down the East Coast and she's always there watching. We went on a holiday last year to the Aeolian Islands and you could even see Mount Etna from there. It's crazy. It's just, true, yeah. It really is the mother. She's always watching.
Yeah, but it's also it's really important to note that it is an active volcano. So there is literally smoke coming out the top. And even this summer, a few weeks ago, they had some little eruptions, which is not uncommon. It's a normal occurrence. And it's okay, everyone. They know if it's going to blow, but they get a lot of, obviously, they're monitoring the seismic activity constantly, but it's just such a cool thing to see with all of, you have these Baroque towns and in the distance you have the volcano. It's amazing.
I love it. Yeah, it's really amazing. And the soil there as well. I mean, everything I think tastes better in Sicily, but especially the wine.
between the sea, the sunlight, and the soul of the volcano. Everything, as she said, is super rich in flavor and in nutrients. And the winemaking there, it's famous and rich and luscious because of the volcano, but also it's super historical.
Yeah.
So more than 2,000 years ago, they were already harvesting and growing wine, thanks to the ancient Greeks, which colonized the area and installed tiny little towns. And of course, it was a big culture for winemaking. And so they imported the culture for winemaking. And nowadays, they're still retaining a bit of the culture and continue to produce and grow different varieties of grapes. And it's a very historical tradition in the region.
I think the thing as well that I love the most about wine coming from Sicily in general, I'm quite into drinking organic wines, which is a big trend in the wine world. And I'm not talking about gross things that taste funky, but, things that are made with less chemicals and really, aiming to support the environment and give back into the land so that you drink, even better wines. But the thing that I really love is that there's this interesting blend of old world practices with new world ambition. And there's a lot of young entrepreneurial Sicilians who are working really hard to, create a new kind of enological revolution in Mount Etna especially. So young winemakers experimenting, biodynamics, organic viticulture, bringing in modern techniques and marrying it with the really ancient 2,000-year-old winemaking history on Mount Etna. So I find that really exciting.
Yeah, I think if you grow up in the shadow of a volcano, you probably have a lot more respect for the land and earth.
Exactly. Probably so, yeah.
I'm not going to offend that thing over there in case it decides it's very angry and wants to punish us. But, yeah, I think it's an amazing and, yeah, like you say, it's very vibrant. And Sicily is a really exciting place for that because the people really respect their home and they love their home. So they would identify as Sicilian rather than Italian. So, there's a lot of sort of civic local pride that comes out, not just in the wine, but in really everything that they do. Okay, so Olivia and Andrea, what sort of wine do they make there?
So they make white and red. Yeah. So whatever you drink, there's something for you. But perhaps we'll start with the white. So it's simply called Etna Bianco. So it's very easy to know what you're ordering. And it's made with a blend of Caricante and Catarato Bianco grapes. So these are indigenous to Sicily. Caricante is an ancient Sicilian white grape. And they think it's been growing for, as Andrea was saying, even 2,000 years ago when the Greeks came. So it's got a very long history. What can you expect from this wine? So think about delicious aromas of apple, pear, citrus, lemon, even floral notes like jasmine and orange blossom. Orange blossom to me is Sicily in a nutshell. So if you think of this grape as well, it's just so Sicilian. It's a really light and mild wine, but you can get more medium to full-bodied versions if you go for an Etna Bianco Superiore, which means it's been aged longer, so that 30 months. So you can have your kind of aperitivo version, just the Etna Bianco, the DOC we always recommend going for, or you can go for a Superiore if you want something that's going to be a little bit more weighty to have with your pasta or your fish courses.
So Liv, it's a very unfamiliar wine. Most people will not have tried it. And so can you say something that's a little bit similar?
I feel bad to compare it to anything else only because, obviously it's a volcanic wine, so it's so different. But the fruity notes could even be a little bit similar to like a Pinot Grigio. Yeah. I would say that familiar fruitiness. However, it's also got floral notes in it too. And I much prefer an Etna Bianco to a Pinot Grigio if I have to choose. But if we're going to say something similar, think of it kind of like that, but 100 times better.
Yeah. Opinions are coming out today. Look out. Love it. More opinions, please. We love them. So that's the white wine. And so in Sicily, obviously, the food is amazing. It's like you cannot have bad food in Sicily. But what are we eating with this wine?
So a really typical dish is pasta con le sarde, so sardines, but don't think of like those gross little things that I know a lot of my American clients are really hesitant to try. They're completely different. They're delicious. And they have a lot of fennel in Sicily too, so finocchietto. And this dish is typically with pine nuts and even raisins. So that's a really delicious pasta dish to try with this wine.
Yum. That sounds amazing. Yeah, I love all of that. And they're slightly got that North African hint as well with the raisins, and it's a really interesting complex cuisine, and it's, like it's completely different to what you're going to find in Rome or Emilia-Romagna or anywhere else. So it's amazing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we prefer red though, what are we drinking?
So if you prefer red and you like something like a Pinot Noir, then you can try Etna Rosso. Etna Rosso is the red wine of the region, and it's born from Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio, these two varieties of wine, and gives a fresh and floral body with a lot of minerality because, of course, of the volcanic soil it's grown from. You can find notes of cherry, rose, and spice. It's very elegant wine overall. I really like it. And it's interesting that this DNA grape, that we can say, is the child of the famous Tuscany grape, Sangiovese, which you've heard before because of Chianti and all that, of course. So you can think about it as a distant cousin, distant relative of the Chianti, but born in Sicily under Mount Etna. I would also, recommend the Rosato version of it, because we said that there is a bit for everyone, right? And I know that you like rosé wines, Katy. So they also do Etna Rosato from the same grape. And it's very delicious, especially if you go there in summer, which is high season. It's a go-to wine.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a little hard drinking the red wines in the summer season with the heat. So the rosé, the Rosato is a great option.
Oh, we'll never say no to that. Thank you for looking after me there, as you always do. You know what I'm like. So what do we eat with these delicious red and Rosato?
Well, something that you could try, something a bit, let's say, controversial, but I would recommend to try something very typical. It's the street food, particularly the arancino or arancina, because it depends on which part of Sicily you're from. There is this big feud on how it's pronounced. And it's, for people who don't know what it is this rice fried with inside different ingredients. It can be tomato sauce, it can be fish, it can be different things. And usually, of course, you don't drink it with a wine. But I would recommend trying it because, in my opinion, the tannin, which are present in the Etna Rosso, can cut through the fattiness and the heaviness of the fried arancino. So if you want to do something different, you can try two typical products of this part of Sicily.
What about even pasta alla norma?
Pasta alla norma is, of course, a bit classic as well, correct? Which is made with aubergines. It's delicious. I personally prefer it over pasta con le sarde. It's made with tomato, aubergines, and usually short pasta. It marries very well with Etna Rosso.
Yum.
And for those who are from who don't speak French or British, aubergine obviously is an eggplant. So no, it's really interesting because when I was living in the UK, they use a lot of French words instead of the Italian or the American. And so you're sort of going, what are you talking about? But yeah, love that pasta alla norma. It's my favorite. I love it because I'm just putting it out there. My favorite vegetable is eggplant.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, delicious. And they do it so well in Sicily.
Yeah, they really
the caponata. That would be great with the white wine too, I think.
Yeah. Now, this is a region that is got its tourism smarts together, isn't it? So, if you want to actually go and visit wineries, this is a really good place to do it because they're quite well organised, unlike some of the other smaller regions. And you can visit wineries from Catania or from Taormina, where a lot of people like to base themselves, or even if you're staying further afield in Siracusa or Ortigia. But I think the closest is Catania and Taormina. So where are some of the wineries that you like to visit, Liv?
So my favorite would be Benanti, because it's a nice mix between, it's not super big, but it's not super small. Yeah, they've just got really organic approach and a really I like their philosophy as well about, giving back to the mother, giving back to the soil. So I just think that reflects really deliciously in their wines. And they've got really nice, as you were saying, their hospitality in Sicily. They're no stranger to tourists. So you can also have lunch when you do a wine tasting. And that might seem like a really obvious thing if Australians and Americans are listening, because that's how it is in our countries. But that is definitely not the norm in Italy, that they offer, a full lunch with a wine tasting. But a lot of the wineries in Sicily, they do. So it's a really nice experience. So I would say Benanti. Otherwise, Donna Fugata is always a great option. Obviously, it's a lot bigger winery. A nice thing about Donna Fugata, though, is that if you love their wines, you'll likely find them in the States and Australia, because they do export around the world. So you can keep enjoying that Etna wine back home. And yeah, Donna Fugata is nice because there's lots of different Donna Fugata wineries around Sicily, and they've got an outpost on Mount Etna where they make their Etna wines. So that's a really reliable one too. They're obviously used to having a lot of guests come in and out. They offer a lunch experience too, or just a wine tasting, but it's a very polished experience that you'll have there.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting because, we obviously go around to different wine regions, and some of them are, a lot more developed from a tourism perspective than others. And in fact, I think in some ways, in a lot of ways, from maybe even a group tour perspective, it's easier to go visit these wineries, and sometimes even in Tuscany, it can be quite difficult. Anyone out there who knows of some really great Tuscany wine tours, let us know, because, we have a few that we love, but I feel like it's a bit of an untapped market. But in Sicily, they've really got their act together, and they know what people want. They know that they want to be transported from Catania or Taormina, and they're onto it. And you can have this beautiful lunch and experience on the volcano. I mean, it's a wow. This is like a once-in-a-lifetime experience, because a lot of the other volcanoes in the world are really in tropical areas, aren't they? The ones that are live. And so you're not really getting wine there.
No, exactly. And it's so amazing just to be on these wineries too. They're so lush and green, and everything smells better, everything tastes better. I mean, it is really, if you're going to East Sicily and you even just have a passing interest in wine, I would highly recommend doing a wine tour, because you'll never go anywhere else like it. You really won't.
No, I mean, it's completely unique. And, because they've had such this, really interesting relationship with that volcano, because it obviously destroyed half of that part of the island. Now I've forgotten the date, but it's, back in the 17th century or 18th. Yeah, I mean, like, it's a really interesting relationship that they have with nature, I think. It's a combination of fear, respect, and love, and but it's a relationship that maybe some of us that grew up in cities just don't have.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, like Sicily as a whole, like, just to give you some kind of numerical figure, like when you talk about winemaking, 38% of all viticulture is organic. Yeah. So that is huge, and that just also feeds into this respect that they have for the land in Sicily. It's a completely different relationship, I think, than a lot of other countries or regions have for the land.
This is a theme that comes back again and again. Like, it's just taking the time, understanding what's going on, slow. You can't do this fast. It's going to roll with the seasons. There's going to be some good seasons, some not so good seasons, and you have to learn and be patient.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I'm just reflecting on my day today that I'm not in Italy, and I use my horn like about 10 times. Like recognized in myself this rush, and it's like, you got to piano, slow down. And it's
true.
You need to keep reminding yourself. So maybe it's time for me to go and get a glass of Etna wine. What do you reckon?
I think so. That bottle is calling, Katie.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go find one. But they do have Donna Fugata in Australia, definitely. For those of you who are in Australia, they have it at Dan Murphy's. So.
And, I can tell you as well, they have it definitely in the States, because when I was last on tour for Untold Italy, in West Sicily, we also came across Donna Fugata, and even one of our guests who lives in Hawaii, she can get Donna Fugata there. So you'll be in safe hands.
Ciao to Kathleen, actually.
Ciao, Kathleen.
Hope you're listening. Now, Sicily is one of those places, it doesn't ever get too cold, does it? But is there a better time to go, do you think?
Yeah, again, I would just probably say when to avoid. And I think like the height of summer, unless you really love the heat and / crowds, I just wouldn't go in July and August personally. I just think that's so hot. Even June, we were there in June last year and it's very hot.
Good time to go, in my opinion, since, as you said, it's never really cold and it's in the south of Italy. I would go late September, beginning of October. You can still have very good weather. You can still swim in the sea in October. If you're listening from the northern hemisphere, the word October you associate, of course, with winter or autumn more than winter, so with cold weather. But in Sicily, it's still very warm. You can still have like a late summer. So I would definitely recommend late September, beginning of October.
I mean, winter can be a nice time to visit too. However, a lot of activities close in winter, so you might be lucky to find a winery that will open up for you, even if the weather's quite nice. So that's probably why I'd stick to spring and fall.
Yeah, and that's why our tours go at that time of year too, because it's, you get the lovely weather and you have everything's open and you can see maybe the Vendemmia. When is Vendemmia actually in Sicily? It must be October-ish.
It can be later because of the altitude.
Yeah, the altitude, and usually you don't want to do it too soon compared to the north. But yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
the altitude is a factor, as you said. So.
Also, because on Mount Etna you can get even like alpine temperatures, like freezing temperatures. So yeah, that is
rarely,
true.
But it happens.
Yeah, rarely, but it can happen that it can be really, really cold. So it's definitely a later harvest.
Yeah, I know Olivia was shocked when some guests wore some sandals.
Yes, on climbing Mount Etna. Time for sneakers.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can actually go right up to the crater, can't you? You can go right to the top.
You can, and there's lots of different routes that you can do. And on our tours, we visit not a too intense hike. We visit a crater that you can, do a nice kind of walk around the crater with a guide and learn more about Mount Etna and the history, which I find really interesting. But it's not too strenuous because some of the hikes can be you're on a volcano, let's keep in mind. Some of the hikes can be very challenging. So, yeah, you've got to choose the right hike for your level of fitness, of course.
I was going to say your level of laziness. Everyone's different. Some people like to power off and sweat and all of that. And, for me, I'd rather like take in the atmosphere and enjoy and, get my steps in and have a lovely glass of wine at the end of it. But everyone's different. And I think you can adapt these activities for your travel style. And that's something really important to us, isn't it, Liv?
And I think the thing that I love our day when we go and visit Mount Etna on the Untold Italy tour is the best day because you see lots of different variety. In Mount Etna itself, you start, we go all the way up the top to one of the craters and have this walk, and the landscape there is very, dark, and the lava stone and kind of, the drive up there is not desolate at all. It's really fertile and lots of trees and shrubbery and that kind of thing. But when you get to the crater, obviously you're looking at the crater of a volcano, and then you go back down the hill and we stop in at one of the wineries, and it's so lush and almost tropical. It's completely different to, the crater that you've just seen. Yeah. And then you keep going back, towards Catania, and we stop in at a gorgeous little town that's famous for its honey production, because keep in mind, it's not just amazing wine that they produce. They also have a lot of other products, and honey is famous in Mount Etna. So I love that day because you get all these different looks at Mount Etna, from the sceneries to the products that are being produced. So it's just incredible if you have the opportunity to visit.
That's why we love Italy, because even in one day you can have all of that diversity. We've got some guests actually coming, haven't we, that are going to Sicily and Tuscany, and I can't wait to see their impressions, because it's literally like going to another country, even another continent, to actually experience those two regions. So, yeah, And Kathleen, who we mentioned before, she went to Piedmont, which is even
more different.
Yeah, but this is the amazing thing about Italy, and why people keep going back again and again is because you can have all these unique and different experiences in the one tiny little area. Well, it's tiny for those of us who live in Australia or North America.
That's true.
Look, I can't wait to get back to Sicily. Everyone kind of knows it's like it's got a real different pulse about it, of different energy. It's always fun. But, you know, if people want to keep learning about these Sicilian wines with Italian Wine Tales, how can they stay in touch with you and do that?
So you can head on to our website, italianwinetales.com, or our Instagram, Italian Wine Tales, and we also have a Facebook group, Italian Wine Lovers. So if you want to ask questions and get immediate kind of responses from the community, connect with, other Italian wine lovers, then that is the place to do it.
Amazing. All right. Well, yeah, I can't wait to get back to Sicily and drink those Etna wines. So good. Grazie, Olivia and Andrea. Thank you for taking us on another wonderful wine journey.
Grazie mille, Katie. Thanks, everyone. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. As always, I really appreciate Liv and Andrea for sharing their knowledge about wine and winemaking in an easy and accessible way. I think it's the perfect approach for those of us who enjoy wine but don't want to get too deep into the technicalities of it. And what better place to explore winemaking and the amazing red wines of Sicily than close to Mount Etna? It's difficult to overemphasize how important the volcano is to not only the winemaking process, but it is also the beating heart and culture of the island. So if you like wine, do consider visiting a winery when you're there and sipping your Nero d'Avola in the shadow of the mother, Mount Etna. For those of you who like to relax and have everything taken care of for your Italy trips, our Untold Italy Eastern Sicily trip visits Mount Etna and a family-owned winery there, so you can learn more about the traditions and tastes of Sicily. We also visit Catania, Taormina, the Val di Noto, and one of my most favourite places in the whole world, Ortigia, on this trip. Our sold-out 2024 trip filled quickly, so book soon if you're keen to join us in October next year. As always, we provided a full list of the wines, grapes and places mentioned, as well as a link to our Sicily tours into our detailed show notes for this episode found at untolditaly.com/246 for episode number 246. Make sure you have a look around our website when you're there. There are hundreds of articles designed to help you build your dream trip to Italy. We're very, very proud of the information we send out into the world. It's based on a love for Italy and checked regularly, so you know that it's up to date. Grazie, thank you to all our wonderful listeners for your ongoing support of Untold Italy. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did, then it would be amazing if you gave us a rating or review in your favourite podcast app. That helps us reach more Italy-loving travellers just like you. On next week's episode, we'll be sharing more ways to enhance your travels in Italy. But until then, it's ciao for now.
The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.